Hi, my name's Richard Dethridge. I'm 63 years old, and my wife passed away on Super Bowl Sunday, February 9th of this year, 2025. I'm making this video for those people who are going through the grieving process of losing a loved one and going through the holiday season, get a little extra harder to go through as well. But I got family near me, and it gets me through. But this is not the same. Last year, after Thanksgiving, I noticed a change in my wife's walk and the way she was getting around. It wasn't as well as she used to. She used to be able to go out and pull the trash cans in and, that type of thing. But she went from walking around the corner to walking around the block to walking down the corner to walking up and down the garage driveway and until she couldn't do it anymore. And it got to the point where she was in the house and getting around the house started to become difficult. So I noticed a decline in her ability to get around Thanksgiving last year. And that was hard to see her go through that because she was diagnosed 5 years prior. She was in the hospital for dehydration, and she's had cancer 4 times in the past. And about 2 years into our marriage, we were married for 31 years. She had a hysterectomy. We couldn't have any children, so that pretty much depressed her, not being able to have children. She loved children, and this is what she wanted to do. She even tried to talk me out of continuing to be in marriage with her, and I wouldn't do it. I loved her that much. And she was a great soul and funny and fun to be with, and just a life of a party, fun to be around. After her hysterectomy, she started drinking. We all have a beer or so with dinner, and maybe 6 beers a week for me, during the heat of the summer. But I don't drink that much. But Sarah did, and she ended up drinking quite a few beers a week. She was only 97 pounds, but I just have no idea how she drank all that beer, didn't gain any weight or lose any weight. She just stayed at 97 pounds the whole time. I thought that was pretty amazing. Our whole marriage, she just stayed a little tiny petite thing. And going through the Thanksgiving last year, I was trying to get some counseling for Sarah. We live in California, and trying to get some grief counseling because we both knew 5 years prior when she was diagnosed with vulvar carcinoma. And she also was in there for dehydration for alcoholism. And I didn't really accept that at first. So, I was just telling everybody she died from cancer. But the reality is people die, and people die from alcoholism and smoking, and she did both. And that's part of what she died from, and a broken heart from not being able to have any children. I look back at it and trying to get the grief counseling for Sarah, and we have top of the line insurance with Cigna, and really good insurance, and we couldn't even get an appointment. Because the system was so clogged up in California that from who knows what, I think it was from the migration of illegal people coming in, just clogged up the whole system in California, the medical system, the mental health systems. It was all just clogged up, and we couldn't get an appointment at all. So Sarah decided, we were going to wait to get Social Security when we're 65, like a lot of people do, to retire and move on, but she didn't want to use the social services. She used to be a nurse's assistant, a nursing aide, so she kind of knew what to expect when she was going through her death and what to expect. And she told me that she wanted to die at home, and she told me what was going to happen, and then we'd go through it together. And I promised her that she would die at home. Thanksgiving went through, and Christmas came upon us, and I was trying to get her to get some grief counseling, and we couldn't get it, of course, but like I explained. So she decided she didn't want it. And so I called emergency grief counselors, and I was able to get through and get some emergency grief counseling, which worked, for me. I went through 5 sessions of emergency grief counseling through December and January. But Sarah didn't. She just lived with it. And that's what kind of makes me mad about the system and what's happening here in California. And I don't mean to be political, and I don't have any ill will against immigrant people at all. I think they're wonderful people, and I love them, and I work with them all the time. But, the system is supposed to work for the people who live here and pay for it and get by. And when the system's all broken down like it is in California, like it is in a lot of the bigger cities, it's just not right. It's not fair to the people who pay for it. And the people who have to go through the grief counseling because of a loved one dying or going through dying, it's unforgivable. It's unforgivable. It's not acceptable. And it needs to end. The California legislators and the governor and everybody that runs the state is just beating it into the ground, overtaxing everybody. And I don't mean to get political, but you got to at some point. Someone's got to say something. And I'm fed up with it. I just can't deal with it any longer. But going back to what Sarah's went through, she couldn't go to grief counseling because of what they created. And I'm talking about the government of California, the administration on down, everybody. We didn't use the social services, which we had a right to, but I made pretty good money, and I wasn't able, she didn't have to worry about working for the last 9 years. And we just dealt with it the best we could, going through the different stages of decline. And the last week of Sarah's life, end of January, 1st of February, she seemed to be okay. I think she was paying possum looking back at it, and wasn't being up and up front with me about what was happening that I think she knew. Being a nurse's aide, I think she knew exactly what was happening to her. I think the medical community would probably know what she was going through. I have no idea. She didn't bring it up to me, and she didn't tell me exactly when the way was going to go down. But she did tell me she wanted to die at home, and when it happened, that we had to do it together. The last week of Sarah's life, I I come home every day for dinner. It seemed normal. Dinner would be ready. She'd be on the couch. She was knitting crocheting a blanket for her sister. And actually they were in a fight, but sisters, right? But they were upset at each other, and she wasn't doing very well. And I was kind of upset that they were getting angry. We didn't tell anybody about Sarah being sick. 5 years prior, when she was in the hospital, her dad passed away, and she just didn't want to tell anybody that the doctors have told her that she was going to expire, and they gave her 3 years. That we'd be noticing some kind of symptoms in around 3 years. And they were right. On the third year, there's a couple episodes that we went through where I came home and I found her on the floor in the bathroom one day when I came home from work. And I was worried because we always talked every day at 12 around lunchtime, and I call her. And I start work early. I was there at 6 o'clock and off by 2:30 and hitting the road. I was working an hour away at the time. So when I called her at 12 and didn't get an answer, I was very concerned. And so I kept calling. And in Bay Area traffic, I was working in Oakland at the time. And Bay Area traffic on the way home was a 3-hour drive. So when I got off at 2:30, I didn't get home till 5:30 or 6. So by the time I got home and I was calling and not getting any response, and there was nobody I could call local to come by because her family was all out of the area. And I didn't know for sure what was happening. I just figured she went out with a beer with one of her girlfriends in the lunch or something. But it wasn't the case. I got home, she was on the floor. I went down to touch her to see if she was alive because I didn't know what to expect. And she jumped up and was startled that I touched her. And she mentioned that she had to turn off the lights, so the outside lights. So we put 2 and 2 together after we thought about it for a while. She was on the floor all day long in the bathroom for 9 hours or whatever, 10 hours until I came home. So, but she got up and I was able to help her and to get to the bed. I asked her if she wanted to go to the doctor. She said no, of course. That was Sarah. She was a fighter, but she seemed okay. I walked her around and she got around okay, and whatever happened came and went. And she slept it off during the day. So that was one episode. And but those are the things you run across when you're going through the decline of somebody and their health. And we had something else happening. She fell in the hallway during the night, getting up to go to the restroom. So, but there was the same thing. She wouldn't want to go to the hospital. She had some kind of convulsions, and I've been through that before with her as well. When she went to the hospital 5 years prior, 4.5 years prior. So I was familiar with what she was going through. So we just rested together, and she came around again. I don't know how, but she did. She was okay up until the last week of her life. I didn't know that she was hiding things from me. One thing she did do was she hid it pretty damn well. She probably knew what she was going through, and I'm thinking that her system was shutting down. And looking back at it now, but at the time, she was playing possum. I had no idea. All that week, she cooked dinner. It was ready. When I got home, I could heat it up, or it might have been ready. And she was on the couch all the time, all that week, until she had to go to bed. So when she got up to go to bed, she just went from the bed to the bedroom door, or from the couch to the bedroom door, which wasn't that far. So I didn't think anything of it during the week, that she was sick, and she didn't let on as well, until Friday came along. And that was the last time she went to bed. She never got out of the bed again. The next day, on Saturday, was kind of like a couple times prior, where I went to go get her up and helped her up out of bed. And she was getting around, but she told me, "Look, Richard, I need a wheelchair. I need you to buy a wheelchair and get it here today." So she knew what was happening. I had no clue. I was kind of I didn't want to accept it. And I didn't think too much about it at the time, but okay, I'll get you a wheelchair. So I ordered one on Amazon and had it delivered the same day. And it was one of those sitting chairs with the brakes on it. And she was okay during the day on Saturday by the time I got the chair and put it together. But that night, I could tell she was declining even worse. And she wanted me to help her, wheel her to the bathroom and wheel her outside to smoke. And I did that, and it seemed okay at the time. That was on Saturday. And then during the night on Sunday, I checked on her. She was okay. And she was talking with me, but her hands were ice cold and her feet were ice cold. So I know her circulation wasn't going as well, and she still didn't want to go to the hospital. I asked her. And then Sunday morning came around, and she was just lethargic. She couldn't talk. I tried to help her. I could tell she wasn't speaking very well. She was talking. She was still wanting to get up to go to the bathroom and go out to smoke. And she told me, it was around 9, 10 o'clock that morning. She asked me what day it was. And I told her it's February 9th. And she goes, "Well, I'm going to die today." So she knew what was happening to her. And I didn't know what to think. I was just there. I helped her to go to the restroom, wheeled her to the restroom, and helped her go to the restroom. And she wanted to go out and smoke, and I helped her to go out and smoke, and she couldn't even hold up the cigarette to smoke it. She was bent over. She couldn't have the mobility to stand up. I was trying to help her stand up, and she just kept slumping over. So I had to hold her up and light her cigarette and put it in her hand, and she was trying to bring it to her hand. She couldn't even bring it to her mouth. And I knew it was serious. I asked her if she wanted to go to the hospital. She said no. "Richard, I want to die. I'm going to die today, and I'm going to die here today." And I wasn't accepting it. I was angry. I was going, "We got to go to the hospital to get you to the hospital to get you better. You know, something's wrong with you. You got to get better." She said, "Well, Richard, you remember what the doctor said 5 years ago, and I told you." And she did tell me some things about her dying, but I didn't think it was going to be that quick and that fast. It happened just so fast, so quickly. My dad passed away 11 years prior, and there was a lung cancer, fibrosis of the lungs, and he went through 6 years of hell. And I was there in the last year of his life and was around every day and saw his decline over time. But this was just so fast, what Sarah went through. I think she hid it from me up until the very end, obviously. And she was so brave, what she went through. After I tried to help her get her smoke done, I took her back into the bedroom and laid her on the bed. And she goes, I just want to be alone for a little while. So I agreed, so I shut the door. A couple hours went by. And I went to go check on her. And she was a vegetable. I want to put her to bed. She couldn't move anything. She couldn't get up. She couldn't do anything. But to my surprise, when I went into the bedroom, she had herself propped up on the bed with her hand behind her back, sitting up. And she had one hand up above, and she was looking like she was in a trance. She was talking to somebody. And I was watching her, and I went, Sarah. She didn't even look at me. She was in some kind of a trance, or she was talking to somebody saying, I don't know you. I don't know you people. Who are you? And looking back at it, I know that her soul was being taken at that time, that Jesus was taking her soul at the time. It had to have been. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, I was raised Catholic, and I went through Sunday school every Sunday, and I really didn't follow the religion. When I was 18 or 19, I kind of left the church, and I tried to be a good person, but never went back to it. And I was a good person most of my life, all the way through, and still am. But I didn't really believe. I believed in God, but I really didn't feel it until that morning, until I saw that happen. When I witnessed that, I felt something when I touched Sarah. And I felt like I knew that she was being taken and Jesus was there with her. I can't explain it. I just felt it at the time. And Sarah just kind of slumped, and when I touched her, she slumped, and I just put her back into bed. But at the time, I didn't know what to think about that. I just found it spiritual and more spiritual and closer to God than I've ever been before. As the day went on, I was feeding Sarah and trying to get her to drink, and she wouldn't eat or drink. She had something on Saturday, like a little quarter piece of peanut butter and jelly sandwich on Saturday, and she was drinking on Saturday, but on Sunday she couldn't eat anything, and I was still mad at her, and I was angry that she wouldn't let me take her to the hospital. And I argued with her and fought with her. She was yelling back at me the best she could, saying, no, you promised me, you promised me. I couldn't break my promises to her. I never broke a promise to her. So I kept my promise. I asked her to forgive me for getting angry with her. She did. She just nodded her head, yes. Her hands were so cold. Her feet were so cold. So I kind of wrapped the blankets around her the best I could to keep her as warm as possible and sat by the bed just to be with her. She couldn't talk. That was the last. She didn't want to go to the bathroom. She didn't want to smoke. She couldn't. So we sat together. I sat down at the foot of her bed next to her. I laid up with her and talked to her a little bit. She couldn't talk. But she was just looking at me with her eyes. Like it was okay. The look she gave me was like, it's okay. And I knew she was dying. So I don't pray. I never prayed. In all those years, I never did. But she was sleeping, and I said a prayer for Jesus to take her. To not let her suffer anymore. And when I was tired, it was Sunday night, and I knew I had to call into work to not to go into work the next morning. But I was exhausted, and I went to go take a nap. And between 9 and 11 o'clock, and I came in to check, how to go to the bathroom. I went in to go check on her, and she was gone. I could tell. I checked her pupils, and she wasn't breathing. I knew she passed. Her hands were cold. Her body was cold. Or colder. It wasn't warm. I was trying to wake her up. She wasn't waking up. I knew she was gone. I called 911. They asked me to take her off the bed and start doing compressions on her chest. So I did. And I kept the compressions going until the police showed up. They showed up and they took over doing the compressions until the ambulance came, and they checked on her and they pronounced her dead after a while. She did pass away. They asked me if I wanted to have the last rites said over, and I said yes. And called the local priest to come out, chaplain. Two very nice people came out and said the last rites over, and said a Lord's Prayer with her, over her. I came and took her, the coroner's office came and took her body away from her about 2 o'clock in the morning the next day. And I didn't know what to think other than to call her mom when it was a proper time to call so she could sleep. So I don't know what time I called her mother, but that was a hard call to make, to let her know that her daughter passed away. To tell her mother that her baby's gone. This is something you just don't want to do. Last thing anybody ever thinks about doing. We went through the grieving process. Her family came over and stayed the next week. And spent some time together. And Sarah had figured before that she wanted to donate her body to the medical students to have her body as a cadaver, and so her students can learn from her body. She felt very strongly about that. So she donated her body to UC Davis. And in the coroner's office, they took care of everything. Once the family left the next week, I was by myself. I thought I can go back to work. I took a couple weeks off of grief, days off of work, which the HR department was fine, giving me the days, of course. But I decided to come back to work 2 weeks after she passed away. Or maybe it was 3 weeks after she passed away. And I went to work again, trying to get back in to some kind of a normal routine. I think the first thing I ran across was that the laundry was stacked up and I had no clean clothes, and the dishes were in the dishwasher and the sink and weren't clean, and just had to start coming back and living, starting off with chores around the house and slowly getting the dishes done and getting the laundry done and trying to come back around. I tried to go back to work, and I went to work for maybe a week or so, and St. Patrick's Day was upon us, and I worked up until that time, and then I got the crock pot out and the corned beef and cabbage out, which we already had in the refrigerator because she was prepared for it. And I went to go put it together, and she just wasn't there. I broke down. I broke down. Stepped out of foot of the bed. It's about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was just, I don't know what happened. I was just out of it until I got a phone call at 10 o'clock in the morning from my foreman saying, hey, where you at? And I work with my brother, Jimmy, too. He's my boss. He told me, hey, don't worry about it. Take as much time as you need off. And I just had a nervous breakdown. I just didn't do anything. So I thought of grief counseling again. So I called in. I got an emergency grief counselor and tried to get an appointment. I couldn't get an appointment for a month. There were 2 booked up solid to get grief counseling. So I just kept calling the emergency grief counseling when I needed to. They helped me get through that. And I highly recommend, if you can't get counseling, that's all you got. You have something that's there. At least you can talk to somebody in emergency. It's not like talking to family. You can talk to family and it's different. Talking to a stranger and them talking to you and bringing things out of you that you don't really think about helped. But you're in a fog. You're in a debilitating fog. Once it hits you, you can't do anything. I couldn't pay the bills. I didn't think about it. We still write checks for our bills. We never got online to do any of that yet. But she took care of everything. She did all that. She wrote the checks, kept care of the bills. She was so good at it. Kept care of the house. She was the homemaker. She did everything. And kept my credit up. Credit went to hell after that. But you're such a debilitating fog. There's got to be a system in place for the seniors or somebody who loses a loved one like that. Even if there's a young child or a child or a husband, a father, a wife, a brother, a sister, there's got to be something in place to help you. I called the grief counselor and tried to set up an appointment for grief counseling. But there should be some kind of automatic trigger or something that somebody dies in your family that they automatically should send somebody to you from the social services or something. I mean, you pay for Social Security and you pay for all that through your paycheck. Seems like there should be a bill or something made up to where it's like mandatory that you have to go through grief counseling right away. And to help you get on your feet, somebody to help you if you're by yourself. My problem was I just didn't care about anything. I didn't care about paying the bills. I didn't care about eating, and couldn't do anything. So it's just an debilitating fog. I felt like I was in the bottom of a well, and I just couldn't get out of it. So HR was trying to help me. I have great insurance, but I never had a primary care physician. I was never sick enough I was always busy. I just never went to the doctors and never had time to go get a primary care physician. And I don't know if Sarah thought about it. She never did either. but we were both pretty healthy up until that happened. The last 5 years of what Sarah went through. I gained a lot of weight in the 5 years. I got up to 390 pounds. I gained 120 pounds in the 5 years going through that with Sarah, knowing that she was going to die. She wasn't sick. She didn't seem sick, but knowing she was going to die in the back of my mind, I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go fly fishing, which was my favorite thing to do in the Sierras, or go camping or hunting with my friends or hang out with my friends. I just kind of kept to myself and we didn't tell anybody, of course. That's what Sarah wanted after her dad passed away. She didn't want to tell anybody. She didn't want anybody coming around, and she wanted everybody to be normal around her. And she didn't want anybody coming and feeling sorry for her. So we kept it to ourselves for the 5 years. And I think that's where I gained all the weight, was that, and the sadness of knowing that her days were numbered. And knowing that was something I wasn't accepting either. I just went through it and worked every day and came home. When I finally did get grief counseling a month later, I just kept to myself. I was a hermit. I didn't work. Work offered a plan, if I can get a doctor to sign off on it, to pay for 12 weeks of time off. And the company offered that, which was awesome. But I didn't have a primary care physician or anybody to sign the paperwork. So I just told them I found out that Sarah squirreled away $40,000. So I just took the days off, the months off. I took 3 months off. And I just became a hermit. I just stayed in the house. I didn't go anywhere. I knew I had to start doing something to lose weight. So I got a stationary bicycle and started riding that. And trying to focus on my health. After going through grief counseling, I went through 6 weeks of grief counseling, 1 day a week. And each session helped a little bit. It made you think a little bit differently. But I think the time alone and thinking, I started watching YouTube channels, and I never really thought about it before. And when I started watching some of the ones about grief, I was looking for that, and about grief counseling and on YouTube. I ran across started watching some of the holy channels. I always laughed at people who did that and thought, nah, I ain't gonna work. That sounds so stupid. But after watching one, and I kind of went halfway through it and turned the channel and was like, that's not for me. But then I started going through counseling, getting that done. After 6 weeks, I was doing better. I was losing weight. I don't know what I weighed, but I knew I was losing weight because my pants were loose and I was being able to button them up. But by the time I started buttoning my pants up and they started getting looser, I knew I was losing a lot of weight riding the bicycle inside. But going through that time, that period, that debilitating fog, and slowly coming out of it with exercising and eating right, I started eating salads more and chicken tenders and dry frying food and eating that way. The pounds started really coming off. I think once you go through debilitating fog and you start to come out of it a little bit after a couple months, At least that's what it took for me. And after the grief counseling, it started to just go for rides in the car up at the Sierras, and it was springtime. February, March, April, May. I didn't go fishing. I didn't feel like it. It's the prime time to go. Didn't go camping or anything. I just wanted to. I was still in a fog. I just didn't know what to do. I couldn't get out of it. So I couldn't go in Sarah's room. And I talked to Jewel, my daughter. She's like a daughter to me. We raised 2 nephews and a girl, which was Sarah's brother and sister's kids. And you know how they say families like fudge, mostly sweet with a few nuts. Well, we took care of their kids for them. And between us and her parents and Sarah raising them when they were little, they're always around. We're always rotating door in and out with their friends, going hunting and fishing and doing all that through the years. And Jewel was like a daughter to us. She stayed and lived with us in her teenage years until she was 14, 13. And her parents moved out of the state and got settled up in Oklahoma. And finally were able to send for her. So it worked out. She went to go live with them again. But I couldn't go into the Sarah's room. I was talking with Jewel about it. And it was still a point. I was still in a fog. I couldn't go in the room. And I knew I needed to go in there and get things cleaned up and start breaking things down and making it a room again. And so I opened the door, and I just still felt her presence there. And I talked to Jewel about it. She told me to open up the window. The blinds were closed, and she said if you had opened the window, their soul would leave the room. So I went in there, and after I talked with Jewel, I went in the room for the first time. I just felt her presence in there. So I went over to the blinds to open up the blinds, and there was a big yellow rose right there in the window. Her favorite rose. Big, huge bloom, full bloom yellow rose right in the window. And I opened up the window, and it just felt like she was okay after that. But I felt that. And I didn't believe in God that much, but I started believing it more as time went by and started thinking about it more. I started watching those YouTube channels with Jesus on it. and they helped. They really did. And you think it's some kind of algorithm or something, but to me, it just every time something came on, it helped me. And I just felt it helping me more and more. After I went to grief counseling, I ended up going back to work after 3 months and started getting back into a routine again. I was online on X channel, and I was just going through the channels, and I like X, and I was watching. I like Fox. I follow Fox News, and I saw a post on there by a celebrity, one of the celebrities on there, and she wrote something, and I commented on it, and she wrote something back to me, and asked me if we can email back and forth. And I didn't think anything of it, but I agreed, and so we got on and we just started chatting, started talking. This was end of May 28th, actually. I remember the date. And I was putting a new roof on the house, and we were talking about that, and talking about kids, and all the kids in between. Sarah's kids are kind of like grandchildren to us, so we call them our grandkids. Sarah always thought of them as our grandkids. And they weren't. They were actually our biological grandkids, but we were there for them and loved them. And this person, we started talking, and I just felt something good about it. And we continued to talk for a long time on the email, going back and forth until we got into a chat room, and just started talking regularly, sending pictures back and forth, and texting. And she was a certified, and I was certified on X, so I knew it was her from her post. So I can't say who it is, but she's a celebrity there. And I just fell in love with each other online over time. I don't know how, but she inspired me. And we just became close. She helped me get through what I was going through, and we talked a lot. And this is part of the grieving process. And 5 months later, I lost 70 pounds with that person. I can't tell you her name, but she was wonderful. And I love her for it. You know, life goes on after grieving, and it takes a long time. And that was the grieving process I had going through, getting out of that fog, washing the dishes, doing the laundry, getting back into a routine, eating right, trying to get healthy again. You got to come back. It takes a while, but you got to come back. And if you can find someone to talk to, that even helps even more, especially with the grief counseling. And to meet somebody online to talk even more about it, and something to be friends with, and look forward to talking and about everything, life, having kids, having family, living a dream again. And that's what life's all about, living the dream. But I came closer to God than ever before. And more recently, with watching the YouTube channels. And I'm going to leave it at that. Who the person is, I can't tell you. But she saved me. She helped me come back. I love her for it. I still love my wife. I feel she's still present all the time. Songs come on that remind me of her. And life goes on. They're always going to be there with you. They'll always be there with you. Do I believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God now. I believe in Jesus, that he died for our sins. He answered my prayers that night. Life goes on. Amen.